Welcome to this edition of Everything Audio. Today we're going to help you navigate the new business of music. Our focus today is the effects of branding and technology on the music business. Our guests include Barak Moffitt, Head of Global Strategic Operations at Universal Music Group. Industry insider Bobby Owsinski is joining us as well. In addition to being an award-winning audio engineer, he is a top author and music news blogger. He'll give us a perspective on the latest issues. And we're fortunate to have with us the multi-Grammy award-winning Avila Brothers. They are responsible for hit music for artists such as Janet Jackson, J-Lo, Usher, Chaka Khan, and the list goes on. In addition, they also consult with companies on new products and write music for TV and films. Their latest work can be heard on the hit Fox series Empire. As always, we want to hear from you, so send in your questions using the hashtag EverythingAudio on Twitter or Facebook, and we'll ask some of the best questions to the panel later in the show. Don't forget the specials Waves has running for the next 12 hours as part of today's episode. If you're watching this on the Everything Audio event page, then you should be seeing those ads right next to the video player. You can take advantage of the specials at any time during the show. But remember, they won't be up for long because they're only part of the live broadcast. They won't be available when watching the recording on demand. Last but not least, to keep in touch and make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I can't wait to get started. It's going to be another great episode. Hi, I'm your host, Dave Hampton. Waves and I want to welcome you all to Everything Audio. As I mentioned in the opening today, we're going to be talking about the new business of music and everything audio and everything that it means, from branding to streaming technology, digital assets, and much, much more. We're going to get right into it first with our guest, Bobby Owsinski. Bobby Owsinski started as a musician, songwriter, and arranger, and his skills led him to become an in-demand producer and engineer, working not only with a variety of recording artists, but on commercials, television, and motion pictures as well. He lectures all around the world and is one of the best-selling authors in music and recording industry today. 23 books that are now mandatory course materials in colleges all around the world. His articles can be found in many of the industry's popular publications, as well as business staples like Forbes and Wall Street Journal. Welcome to the show, Bobby.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Appreciate you being here, man, and we're going to jump right into it. I really wanted to know, with all your books and your blogs and your information, can you give the audience just a brief kind of synopsis of how did you get to this point? What did you do? What brought you to this path in the industry to lead you right here as a spokesperson for the masses?
An accident.
An accident.
Well, like a lot of people, I've kind of had a second career, especially the writing part, and that happened as a result of a friend of mine who, we were both on the same tour. He came on the tour bus, he's a bass player on the tour. He came on the tour bus and said, I just got a job writing for the music paper. And music paper was a music paper out of New York at the time. And I thought, if he could do that, so could I. So I called up Mix Magazine and I said, I'd like to do an article. And they gave me an article that I did very badly, but from there I did maybe 1,000 interviews for various magazines, and it led to writing books, and it led to blogging, and kind of led to where I am now. I'm still in the studio, not as much, but I'm still there. I still keep my hand in it, but I spend a lot of time now behind a computer doing research and writing things that thankfully people seem to like.
That's great, man. Well, thank you for joining us, man. Thank you for joining us. Our next guest joining us today is Barak Moffitt. He is Universal Music Group is the largest faction of music with a roster of artists that spans over 75 years of great music all across every genre. At the core of it is the famous Capitol Studios in Hollywood, and this structure is the symbol for top quality recording and processes and product. we're fortunate to have with us the man who's in charge of Capitol Studios facility, as well as the global head of strategic operations at Universal Music. Whew, I got it right.
You did.
Barak Moffitt. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
Man, tell us a little bit more about what you do at Universal Music Group. And not only that, I was reading your bio a little bit about you started out at EMI Publishing. And tell us a little bit about what you learned there that helped you kind of with what you're doing now at Capitol.
All right. Well, in addition to having the privilege of looking after Capitol Studios for Capitol Music Group, as you mentioned, I run a group called Strategic Operations at Universal Music Group. And really what we do is we work between the creative community and the labels to try to sort of modernize our workflows and about how music gets created, and even before the creative process, and sort of the deal-making process and the recording process, and the process of receiving, the recordings and working with the artists and the producers to make the records in a way that is conscious of how money is made in music today across all of the revenue streams that are the source of where our money comes from today. So that's in a nutshell what we do in strategic operations. And it all starts in the studio, so it kind of makes sense for us to look after some places significant as Capitol. In terms of what I learned, coming from the publishing side, number one is a respect for songwriting and the craft of songwriting, along with the craft of recorded music. But what publishers kind of traditionally kind of get, that's sort of maybe newer to some of the recorded music industry, is the understanding that what's out in the marketplace earning money is intellectual property, and there are some disciplines around rights management that are required all the way from the creative process and before, that are necessary for us to earn everything that we can on behalf of the artists in today's music market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that subject of metadata and digital assets, and
yeah.
I know it's one you're passionate about. For our viewers in particular, why is it crucial at this time for them to really kind of bring that into focus?
Well, today's, the music economy is more real time than ever, right? You want to go from studio to street as quickly as you can, and the definition of street today is a lot different than it may have been 15 years ago when it was Tower Records or Virgin Megastore or whatever it was, where a consumer would come in and they would buy a record and they'd hand $1 or $20 across the counter, and then the royalties were distributed accordingly. But today, you make a record, you got to strike while the iron is hot. Maybe that's getting it up on YouTube. Maybe that's in mobile, in the app space, in a video game, in a film, in a promo, in a commercial, in an ad-supported stream, a subscription service, online radio, terrestrial radio, internet radio. There are more ways to distribute your music now than ever, and the challenge is that. As similar as some of those sound, like an online radio station or a subscription-based streaming service, or a ad-supported streaming service, or user-generated content up on a video channel online, all of those are different rights that are exploited, as similar as they sound. And they're rights that, not just around the sound recording, but the songwriters, the publishers, the contributors, and who all was in the studio, what happened. So it's more important now than ever, especially if we want to have fast time to market and be able to get to the street quickly and strike while the iron is hot. We have to know everything about that record, from the who was there, where was it recorded, who were the contributors, who were the songwriters, what are their publishers, who were the performers on the track, were there samples, were there side artists. So what's happening is as fast as sort of the market is evolving to this real-time thing, it's pushing disciplines that we used to be able to leave later downstream into the recorded music process. It's pushing those disciplines upstream into the studio and even before.
Mm-hmm. Great, great. Well, the Avila Brothers are one of the most successful production teams in music today. We're fortunate to have them with us. These two talented songwriters, who are also brothers, together are responsible for more than 38 million in record sales, and their list of satisfied clients looks like a who's who of industry giants. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Cool. I'd like to start with you, man.
Man, what? Here we go.
No, it's all right, man. You play a lot of roles, but now you're the DJ on tour with Usher, one of your guys' biggest clients, if you had a lot of success with. So
Right.
tell us a little bit about how that got started, and then kind of what advice would you give to the young and upcoming DJs?
Okay. Pretty much, I mean, you know, with Usher, I mean, it really started for us in, I think it was 2004 when we started working on the Confessions record. And at that time, I mean, you know, I mean, even prior to that, I've always been on my MPC and my vinyl, my turntables, and, you know, that was my palette for creating. And during that time, it's kind of when we really kind of just really connected with him. And I think a couple years down from Confessions, we started on the Raymond versus Raymond record. And Usher happened to be doing a show in our hometown, which was Rialto in the Inland Empire, and he was doing a show at the Salmon Wild Casino. So he was like, yo, I'm gonna be in your hometown, man, you guys should come rock with us, you know? So we were like, all right, cool. Got the rehearsal day, showed up, did the show, and you know, next thing I know, I'm getting like full-on itineraries for tour dates and everything, and I was like, whoa, 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 like my road's at the studio, and you know, I can't be gone like that. So, you know, we chopped it up. He was like, man, just bring your turntables, man. We'll just have fun. We'll create while we're on the road and that whole nine. And, you know, that's kind of how that started. And, you know, for me, it was a whole different experience because, you know, being in that setting and being a DJ and having to approach it from a musician kind of standpoint, you know, fitting in with the band, what things to play and that whole nine, you know, it was a great experience. And, you know, to really see people to react to the records that we've created, you know, and I would call him like, yo, man, more than anything, traveling the road to see how our music has touched lives. And you see, you know, these kids in the audience singing every word, moms and dads, you know, it's like, because you, as a creator, you really never know who your music touches and how it touches them. So, you know, being back there behind the decks and just, man, just looking at everything and you know, for me, you know, as a songwriter, it's like, man, I'm not even here as a songwriter. I'm here as a DJ, as part of the band to kind of just take all this in. So, you know, it's a completely different experience for, you know, as being a creator, being in the studio or songwriting, you know. But I think for me, you know, traditionally, you know, as a DJ, you know, back in the days, you show up with a 20-pound crate, you got your needles, you know, it's a whole different thing now. You know, it's like computer. Your playlist is all right there. You can arrange on the spot. You can, you know, if you need to pull a record that's far left, you can do it because all your music's in your computer. So, you know, just those different elements, man, is obviously, you know, that world has evolved completely. But being in a band setting where you're telling yourself as a DJ, okay, just like the bass player, just like the guitar, there's a spot and a specific place where I need to get in and get out. And so, you know, as that being kind of just a place to really take in what you're around and saying, okay, how am I going to fit in this environment? Yeah. You know, because DJ, I don't think has ever really been considered a traditional type of musician. So for me as a DJ now, because I come from that road to musicianship, I look at it completely different. So it's like, if we're about to go, I'm saying, okay, cool, give me all the sounds that don't really sound great coming from a guitar or bass. Let me fly those pieces in from the actual record. Let me take this vocal, chop it up, cut it, scratch it under what Usher's doing so it's a little more flavor. So those are the kind of different things I've been able to take on and kind of create from being within that setting as a DJ.
That's cool. So for the younger DJs coming up and the younger producers coming up who all kind of take all these skills and that's sometimes is their form of music school.
Absolutely, it is.
What's your suggestion to them as far as how they would kind of go deeper and dive deeper?
You know, I would say, you know, I mean, we always tell songwriters, musicians, man, really, you have to be a student of it. You have to know everything prior to you, because what it does is it makes your bandwidth so much bigger so that when those opportunities come up, you know where to go, you know where to pull from. Perfect example, we just got done doing the Global Citizens event in DC. And, you know, he wanted to cover a Beatles record, but he wanted to do it in a way that was fresh, unique, and hard-hitting. And because I know where he, you know, when he gives that explanation, I know where he's trying to go. And I have all this music I can pull from and insert and make it feel very much today, but not take anything away from the originality of it. And I think as creators, songwriters, DJs, or whatever, it's all comes down to, you know, really your library and what you have here, because in those moments you got to have different gears, you got to know where to pull from. And I think that's what separates you from just, you know, a person, a creator that knows one specific thing, you know. And the moment you open all that up, you're able to go places that you naturally wouldn't go.
That's cool.
You know, and that's what kind of gets you to that space of being well-rounded as a creator or a performer or a musician.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Bobby Ross, you and your brother are not only successful music makers in the industry, but you've also done a lot of work with in the corporate world. And you're probably going to see a lot more of this with artists today with branding and some of these projects where they all work together. Kind of talk about how you guys came into talking to people at the consumer level and some of the relationships that you have away from music.
You know, I think for me, you know, being in music, being an artist at 8, 9 years old, and then, you know, discovering how to be responsible for a contract with the executives, with a big record company like an RCA at 11 years old, and opening up for New Kids on the Block, and then, you know, developing a relationship with, you know, incredible songwriter and producers like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis at 13, 14 years old, and coming out of an environment where you're Mexican doing black music. It's a whole nother gear. You either have it or you don't. And when you look at that environment, at a young age, I was just doing music. I didn't read manuals. And let me tell you, if the world knew how Jimmy Jam created music for Janet Jackson and for all of these incredible artists, it would really, really, really dumbfound the world, because he didn't work off of a manual. He worked off of feeling. See, music's something that cannot be heard or listened to. It has to be felt. So for me as a kid, my heroes were Teddy Riley. My heroes were Gamble and Huff. And I'm this Mexican cat out of Rialto. You know, Roger Troutman, Charlie Wilson, Billy Beck, Junie Morrison. Who knows that? For me, I just understood it for some reason, just understood it. And I think, you know, as I'm 38 years old now, after all of the experiences, you know, knowledge is knowing and wisdom is doing. After knowing so much now and doing it, I now understand that at the end of the day, I have a love affair with music. I love music more than anything. And when you're blessed, you know, I always hear Floyd say, you know, you got talent, but I'm blessed, I'm gifted. There truly is a difference. Mm-hmm. And being blessed and being gifted are two different things. You know, being blessed is one thing. If you can't work, you're always gonna be blessed. You'll always be talented. People will always look at you as something special. But when you're gifted and then you do the work, when you put the work into the craft, it's magic. It's magic. And, you know, I grew up in a home where my dad didn't look at the color of a man's skin. He looked at the heart of the man. And I was able to identify with things that he couldn't even identify with. But he gave me the information. And then for me, I was able to discover, right? We don't have discovery in this world anymore. You can't discover anything because we're so focused on what's hot, how to make money, right, all of those things. So it's a very complex question for me because I've been doing it for so many years and I love it that much. And a kid who didn't know what MIDI was but knew how to MIDI and daisy chain SB1200s and MPC 60s and do these things. I just understood it. I knew what truncating was. I knew what 12-bit was. I knew what 8-bit was. I knew what 16-bit was.
Do you think that passion that you have for just the gear and the net, you know, just the intuitiveness that you had is something that kind of leaked over, so as you guys got experience and you branched out and started working with companies to develop products, they kind of instantly saw that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, I would say, like, prime example was when we hooked up with Akai and they brought us in to look at the new MPC they wanted to go to market with. Because our passion was so strong for that particular machine, and we knew so much of the history behind it, it wasn't a problem for us to sit in front of the designers and the programmers to say, what you have there is not going to work. This is a monumental, legendary piece that you have. It's a brand of its own. It's created community. It's changed genres of music. And because we had that passion, we had the knowledge of what that product was, we were able to kind of curve that possibly failing in the market, and we got it right. And you know, what also helps with a lot of these situations and us sitting with companies, at the end of the day, we're end users. You know, we're not just software guys. We're not just, you know, guys that can look at it cosmetically and say it needs to look this way. No, we actually touch it, feel it, create on it. So when we go to talk to other creators, we speak the same language. Whereas, you know, if you're a sound guy, you're used to looking at an MPC and saying, I like my sounds on this side, but I like to program on this side. It needs to have this, it needs to have that. And I think our love and passion for these particular products that we've been a part of has helped us create the next generation of it for the newer generation.
Barak, we're going to go to you. In addition to your, you know, management duties at Capitol Recording Studios, what are some of the changes that you've implemented over there at the facility? It's world famous. It's kind of like the flagship for all the things that he just was speaking about. What are some of the changes that you've implemented over there, and do you have any kind of flagship products that, or pieces of content that you have built that stand out?
Yeah, well, you know, looking after the legacy and the heritage that's Capitol, you know, that's a pretty heavy weight, but it's also a history that we want to live out every day. And the challenge that we have at Capitol today is to try to live out that legacy and also be cutting edge and state of the art and keep up with what's going on in the creative world. And that's a kind of a fine line and a tightrope, you know. But fortunately, we've got the guys in the studio who've got the knowledge, you know. A lot of the, you know, some of the people that we have working there have been there for a very long time, cutting records, like literally cutting records on the lathe, using the you know, famous echo chambers, the legendary gear like the Fairchilds, and you know, the microphones. Keeping that in constant use, and also teaching the next generation of people who are coming through the studios, you know, setup guys and engineers, how to use that stuff and how to respect it and where it came from. And then at the same time, making sure that we're keeping up with all the technology as it develops, you know, not just Pro Tools and plugins, but talking about making, you know, broadcast capabilities, streaming capabilities, doing things live, doing events, you know, partnering with brands, you know, doing showcases, turning the space into a vibrant place where a Capitol Music Group can live out its culture and the artists can come down and feel at their most creative, and that the tools that they want to use, whether it's an MPC or whether it's a Pro Tools or whether it's a 2-inch tape machine, that we've got those available and we have people who know how to use those things and respect those things. So, you know, we've been fortunate enough since we've been acquired by Universal and Capitol Music Group, and looked after by you know, people like Steve Barnett, who wanted us to revive that place and, you know, honor the legacy, but invest in it. So we've done everything from making sure that the infrastructure sounds as good as possible, replacing all the monitoring and the mains in studios A, B, and C, to making sure that the control rooms are sounding as good as possible, you know, replacing and reviving the consoles. You know, we got a new Neve 88R in Studio A, and keeping the Studio B console, you know, running really smoothly. And it's the classic analog rock Neve console. And in Studio C, making sure that it's a multi-use place where we can do overdubs, or where we can do writing, or where we can do mixing from larger string gigs that happen in Studio A. So from the infrastructure, but also to the technology, making sure we're all at the latest and greatest. We're loaded with all the plugins, and we've got the capability to do live recording and broadcast streaming. You know, we do, for instance, the Academy Awards from the orchestras recorded live from Capitol Studios and simulcast, you know, with the actual broadcast. And so we're literally, the orchestra's playing in Studio A and the talent singing on stage, you know, down the street at the theater. So we got to stay on top of the technology and making sure that the people are placed properly, and that we're putting, you know, guys with ears in the places where they should be, and giving them all the opportunity they deserve. And then finally, in making sure all of our process is clean. So when we come in, we know what we're there to do. We know how to do the work. And we all understand where we should be at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. So, you know, across the infrastructure, the people, the processes, and the technology, trying to live out that heritage, and at the same time stay cutting edge and take advantage of the fact that we've got real support coming from our new owners. You know.
That's awesome.
What's an example of one of the current products that you put through that process now that you've been making changes?
So one of the coolest things that personally I've enjoyed is being a part of the 75th Blue Note anniversary reissues, and sort of that whole dynamic I was talking about, balancing the legacy and the heritage, along with taking advantage of the cutting edge. We worked. Don was you know, obviously Don running Blue Note, president of Blue Note Records. You know, the sort of champion behind all these reissues and the ears behind everything that we were doing. We had an opportunity. It was a really unique opportunity to go back into the archives and pull the original tapes, and to treat them the way they should be treated, and to develop really tight protocols around how you handle that tape, and, you know, recognizing that it's, you know, this is like an icon that you're holding in your hands, and then lovingly transferring that into the digital world. And so what's one of the exciting opportunities for us as a record label right now, and as a studio, and being able to take these tapes and listen to what they sound like straight off the tape head, is that you know, with these new high-res formats and high-res outlets like Pono and HD tracks, you know, consumers today can actually hear the same exact bit-for-bit copies of files that we're listening to in the studio. So it's a real honor to be going back to the tapes and bringing them into the world, and work with people like Don to achieve the balance of what was on the original releases to what we're actually delivering through these new digital channels, and at the same time be able to put them out on vinyl. You know, that's an example of, you know, that sort of modern and legacy. Another example would be a production that T-Bone Burnett came and did, which called the Basement Tapes, which is when Bob Dylan found you know, lyrics from the Basement Tape era, and not being one to want to revisit the past, gave him the T-Bone to figure out, you know, what to do with them. And T-Bone put together a super group of people like Elvis Costello, Marcus Mumford, you know, Taylor Goldsmith, and Rhiannon Giddens, and Jim James, to actually go and, you know, be at the Big Pink that was Capitol Studios, and make great music to these lyrics. And we did that all on 2-inch. And it was all filmed, and, you know, it was released as a film on Showtime, and so that was a cool sort of mix of the modern and the past, and it kind of fits in with the whole story that is Capitol Studios.
Cool. Thank you.
That's a big job, man.
Yeah,
Just that
absolutely.
The history of it, and making it live today, man. I commend you on that, man, because for us, that's the only way it gets to the next generation and the next generation. It's guys like you, you know, who understand all those facets and know how to make it work.
Thank you,
and
sir.
much respect to you.
Cool, man.
Yeah, everybody should, our audience, you guys should check out some of these titles that Barak's been mentioning, because it's definitely something that you need to have in your music history folder up here. So, Bobby O, now you're in the 3rd edition of your Music 4.0, a survival guide for making music in the Internet Age series. What was the inspiration for this particular title? I myself love it because you're always ahead of the game. Every time I see you and you tell me about your book, I'm like, yeah, man, I wish I would have wrote that book. but man, tell us what made you do this in particular? Because you're always ahead of the game.
Well, it was getting into social media in a big way and finding out not how to use social media, because that's easy. It's how to use it as a promotional tool, which every artist and every band, every musician has to know how to do. So if you look at Music 4.0, it means that we're in the 4.0 generation. And if you go back and you look around the 1890s, we're in Music 0.5. Because really the music business was built around sheet music, and then it was built around wax cylinders. And then Music 1.0 was the beginning of the real music business. And that was up through the 50s or so. It was the modern music business as we know it. Music 1.5, everything changed because that's when the conglomerates came in and bought out all of the entrepreneurs. And then also MTV came in, and those two things really changed the music business forever. Music 2.0 was the era of the MP3. MP3 comes out, everybody overlooks it except for the people that want to use it. Now we come to Music 2.5, and that's iTunes. Suddenly you can monetize your music digitally, your digital music. Couldn't do that before. Music 3.0 changes because now social media is a really big thing. Suddenly people are using it to interact, especially musicians. And you talk about bands and artists, they're suddenly reacting and they're reaching out to their audiences, and the audiences can reach back. And you couldn't do that before because you had fan club and there's people in between. Music 3.5 again changes everything because now YouTube gets big and people begin to get a lot of their music and discover most of the music online through YouTube. Music 4.0 is where we're at now, and that's actually we're on the cusp of it, just really getting started, and that's streaming music is taking over. And that's where we're at now. Unfortunately, not enough people understand what's going on with it because it's a monumental change in the industry in a lot of ways, especially how you make money off of it. Yeah. There's plenty of money to be made, but people don't quite understand that yet.
Yeah, that was my next question. You know, when it comes to streaming music and royalties, you know, what do independent artists and content creators need to know? You know, what do they need to focus on?
Well, the first thing they need to know is that the pie is going to get bigger and a lot bigger. Last year, there was only 41 million subscribers to streaming music. That's worldwide. We got 7 billion people in the world and 41 million subscribed. So there's a lot of thought, and I subscribe to it, that we're going to have 100 million just in the United States very soon, within the next 3 to 5 years. And we're probably going to have 500 million worldwide. Now all of a sudden our pie goes from this to this. So there's much more music, much more money out there for the musician, the indie musician especially, to make. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things stacked against the indie musician right now. One of the things is the fact that the way Spotify works, for instance. Spotify is not it's not exactly fair in how it divvies up the money. Because what ends up happening is the more you're played, the more you get paid. And most people don't quite understand this. They weight the payout somewhat. So if you're an indie musician, you're getting less. I think in the future that's all going to even out, especially since we have Apple's new Beats, or whatever they're going to call it, their new music platform coming out. And you have YouTube's new subscription platform, Music Key, coming out. And I think Amazon is going to be a much bigger player in the future as well. So everything's going to change, and I believe it's going to change for the better. I may be one of the few that think that, but I think it's going to get better.
Okay. And you know what, man? Can I just say this? Like, if you are a creator that's has a passion for making timeless music and wants to, I mean, you know, we're seeing everybody is now knowing because of YouTube where Stairway to Heaven came from and all these other records, right?
Yeah.
I think the truth is that if you are a creator that is making timeless music and that is very concerned and has a passion for the art, you know, I'm a true believer in, you know, a real creator will always do it for the art, regardless of whatever it is. I mean, you look at Blakesy and Baskey and all these guys who are doing things for not looking for the money, and art galleries are buying his paintings for.
Most jazz musicians
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Exactly.
Well, see, you know, I always say this, you know,
and blues musicians.
you know, jazz ain't no different than hip hop, you know, and I love how Quincy's very passionate about, you know, talking about hip hop music. He's like, yeah, you know, you do this AC and you do a pop record and you do a soul record and you do a street record where they call it hip hop, and the truth is that bebop music and jazz music was truly that in his day and age, you know, and you know, I think that if you are a true creator, I believe this with all my heart, because music can change, one song can change the culture of life. I mean, if Stevie Wonder can write a record about happy birthday, and there's a birthday going on right now, and then could talk about, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King, or a record that can change the culture just like that, I'm not afraid. You can put me on Spotify, put me on Tidal, put me everywhere. The ones that cannot, that aren't the real deal, that can't do it over and over and over and over again. See, Quincy Jones could do that.
Yeah.
Gamble and Huff could do that. A Rick Rubin could do that. A George Martin could do that. A Paul McCartney could do that. A Mutt Lange can do that. He's not worried about the forms, because you're building a brand, but yet you're sending a message that provokes thought throughout the world. And I don't think there's a forum, whether it be anything, that is going to stop
You know the difference
magic
between-
and a voice.
You know the difference between an art and a craft? Art you do for yourself, a craft you do for everyone else.
Thank you.
And what ends up happening in music a lot of times is the fact that we get those two confused.
Yeah.
And you have to look at it a couple different ways. Yes, artists, if they're a true artist, they're always going to do it regardless. They make money, they don't make money, they still have that passion, they're going to do it. On the other hand, it's the music business, and you have to feed your family, you have to, usually there's a lot of people that an artist is responsible for. So commerce does come into it somewhere along the line. But ultimately, if the artist isn't true to himself, it's all for naught, isn't it?
You never want to be remembered for how much you have, and you can't take it with you. You never see a Brinks truck or a U-Haul behind a hearse,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the thing is that if you give it, it's going to come back eventually, because now we have these lawsuits. Chuck Berry, you can't talk about rock and roll music. If no one stole anything from somebody, Chuck Berry.
Yeah, right.
He was it.
Yep.
Chuck, I mean, rock
He was
and
ground
roll.
zero in a way.
Yeah, and then you look at all these different other artists. I mean, Robert Johnson. I mean, Eric Clapton. I mean, I play with them at the White House. Jeff Beck. I mean, I heard Jeff Beck and I heard B.B. King. You know, it's just when you give your art, and to me, the tattoos I have on my body is the art of my heart.
Yeah.
I love music, and I think that's what those guys gave, and the reason why I do what I do is because of that. So you can never put a price on your craft. I believe that your craft will always give back to you, and always give back to you that currency, and that currency will never be enough for what you've put into it. You can't put zeros behind that. And I think the most important thing is that when you can give that kind of life in your craft to an art like music or whatever you're doing, it's always going to come back to you. It will always come back to you.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
also, too, I think the flip side of that, too, is also how we consume music as consumers and, you know, the convenience of it. And, you know, even as creators, it challenges us to make great music, because when you make music that touches people, it doesn't matter whether it's country, rock, or whatever, people then feel the need to put a dollar down on it, as Terry Lewis would say. Nowadays, it's bigger than just that. It's got to be an event. It's got to be something that touches people, because you can't fool consumers anymore. I remember when I used to pay $20 for a CD at the warehouse and might have had 2 good songs on it.
Yeah.
You know, so here we are again as creators. You have to make something great that touches people now, because everybody's stingy with their dollar. You got video games.
What do we say? We're competing against
Plasma
Okay,
TVs,
so
you know?
I'm hitting him on Black Friday. You know, remember when Madonna or Prince would have a record and we would stand out? We don't have no Tower Records, so the brick and mortar is gone, right? So I'm looking at all these. They got tents. They're doing GameStop. They want the new Call of Duty, the Grand Theft Auto 5, 6,
New
7.
tennis shoes.
It's an event, man. It makes
It's explosive. So my thing, it's not that music is not paying. It's not that the industry is not paying. What are you creating that makes people excited about what you're doing as an artist?
Are you saying that much of the music today doesn't reflect that?
It's disposable. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the focus has switched over to let's take this one word, which is monetization, right? So normally in the process, when we used to make a record, you'd be in the studio, oh, what's it gonna sell for? That was just the conversation at the board. Oh, what's it gonna sell for? When you look at the artwork and then you're seeing it come together, oh, what's it gonna hit the shelf for?
Prince said, you know, when people start to fall in love again with music, then it begins to mean something again. And I think there is no doubt a sense of feeling like music is free now.
Yeah.
You know,
and part of that was that's what I was alluding to. Part of that is that monetization word.
Yeah.
It's a smear. That's basically
it's an afterthought. It's at the bottom of the bucket.
Yeah, and a lot of misinformation falls under that category. So what we call a business that had structure, that we saw a food chain of operation and everybody could feed their family, as you speak of, we now see in this chain of wild activity sometimes, which is the monetization around assets.
Well, and
it happens
I
that
agree.
quick.
Yeah.
I agree.
And,
I used to love when Prince said,
yeah.
I did Purple Rain and there's a different barcode in overseas. And, you know, I love that. And try to download something or try to get on YouTube and try to find something with Prince.
He has the best removal team on earth.
I find something, I'm like, yeah.
It's gone.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
it's out of here.
That brings us back to my next question for Barak. At the level that you're at in the corporate tower, what are some of the biggest changes you've noticed, just overall in the music business? Understanding the new music business like it is now, what are some of the changes you've seen?
I'd say there's 2 major shifts that I've witnessed in my time. The first, on the business side, you know, similar to what you're saying about music business 1.0, you know, 2. I like the way that you put that, because it implies that there's an underlying framework upon which there have been evolutions. And I always say that we're not in an industry that's exactly transformed. We're in an industry that's evolved, especially when you look globally. People still buy vinyl. They're buying more vinyl now than they have. People still buy CDs in certain countries, Germany, Japan, France.
Yeah.
People still download music. People stream. People look at user-generated content. People listen to music in elevators. People listen to music in video games. People listen to music on their ringtones, on their ringbacks.
So many platforms.
So many platforms. The issue is if you have that magic song, you know, and that timeless piece of music, it's actually quite a science to get that in the elevator, because those are performance rights that are being exercised right there. So I need to know everything I need to know about the song to be able to exercise those performance rights.
Yes.
On UGC, that's a different right. On streaming, that's a different right. So what's happened is the consumer enjoying music in so many different flavors today have created a more responsibility on the record labels to know what it is and how to connect that music to fans, and then how to reward artists for successful connections, right? So it's made it more complicated, more intricate, I should say, for the record labels to understand enough about what happened in the studio to be able to register your songs with the PPL in the UK so you get paid for that elevator play, or to make sure that your songs are registered on YouTube so that either you can pull them down or you can monetize them, so that you can earn on that CD, so that you can put it on vinyl. So not just the metadata around the who, what, when, where, and why, but also the parts. If I want it in a video game, I need stems. If I want to do remixes, I need stems. If I want it in TV, I need instrumentals. If I want to do a TV performance, I need the background vocals and the instrumental and the acapella on top of that, so I can mix it in with the dialogue. So I need the parts, and I need the actual product, and I need the metadata around that, and that all comes back to when it was being made. So you got to have fun, and it's got to be your passion. At the same time, somebody's got to be there to support you to make sure that that stuff is there.
See, this is what you guys, and this brings us to my last question, but what you're describing is the world before Google, right? You got to realize everybody who's at that level got at that level because they had the focus to say, I need to go this way. I do a lot of work with the Miles Davis estate, same thing.
And
Just super intense. But I don't want to get off on the sidetrack because I got one more question I need to ask the entire panel. And that's basically, but I say that to just say there's a certain level of intensity that's required, and our system used to be more in lock with supporting that, that creative effort. That was the album project. That was, we're going to do this. A career, and so, but my last question for you guys is, I want to ask this to everybody here on the panel and hear what you got to say about it. We've been in the middle of a major reorganization of the music industry for the last 15 years, and primarily driven by technology. So looking forward, what are the changes in technology that you think will be most dominant in the music industry over the next 5 to 10 years? So just everybody in a real short blast, because we have to get to our viewers who have a lot of questions for you. What do you think are just some of those changes that are coming around the corner? And Bobby, I'll start with you.
I don't think we know yet because it's always a surprise.
Say the same thing.
Every time we think we know, that there's something new that happens that comes from a little developer somewhere and blows up. And well, at least lately, since 2000, it seems the way it's happening. So I'm not sure that I can answer that, but I think it's something that we don't know about yet.
Okay. Barak?
3D printer is going to print my lunch. I'm not sure what that has to do with music, but that's what I can see happening.
Yeah.
All right,
Bob?
Dave, ask me that question right now.
What new developments do you see coming around the corner in the next 5 to 10 years that are going to change
With what?
with the industry that's been technology driven to this?
What
point?
industry? Music?
Music industry.
Music just needs to be felt again.
Okay.
You need to feel music all over again because it's the only language that bypasses the brain and goes straight to the heart. It's
got
gonna
one
change
better.
the game.
Technology is going to create its own content.
Boom.
Call me a genius.
Call you a genius.
Thank you. Technology create its own content. Yeah, right.
I'm shooting him right after.
Exactly. All right. Let's open.
Artificial intelligence.
Let's open things up now and bring in the viewers who are watching from all over the world. Our social media team has been scanning the Everything Audio hashtag to see what you'd like to ask our guests. Let's see what they've come up with. Waiting for my Paul Dixon. The internet is a great tool due to its ability to reach a worldwide audience. But how do you differentiate yourself from everyone else so that your audience can find you? Who feels like
Oh, man.
who feels like Bobby Owsinski?
Yeah. Okay, how
Give
do you
me that
differentiate
answer.
yourself so everybody can find you? Yeah, it's one of the hardest things, especially now on the internet, because everybody has their hand up, and you try to get your hand up just a little bit higher than everybody else. But a lot of it has to do with social media and how good you are with it. And social media will say everything online, but it also means traditional media you can't overlook as well. So you still have to do the same thing about promoting shows. You have to go about it building an audience, and you build the audience one fan at a time. That's never changed. Mm-hmm. How do you do it? Again, with social media right now, you learn how to promote yourself, promote your music on social media. It's not an easy thing to do, but it can be done.
Can be done. Okay, great, great. Our next question comes to us from David Thompson. Can self-promotion really be achieved through the internet alone, or is gigging the pathway to real exposure?
Anything you can do to expand your brand and your movement, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, the platform is this now.
Connecting the fans.
You know, it's possible to do it just online. I don't think it's a good way to do it. You know, again, getting back to what musicians do, musicians play in front of people, first and foremost. So if you're not good at that, and it's one of the problems that I've always had with the fact that we
gotta ask that.
fewer clubs, is now you kind of lost your farm team where, you know, people would go to get good at performing in front of people. Well, there's less of that now. Yeah. So that's, I think, one of the big problems we have in music right now is it's just not the ability to learn how to perform.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Next question. What is the best way to send demos to record labels? This is not for you, Barak. This is not for you. Everybody else.
You know what? Your demo might be the cross between the level that changes the world. We always say A&R is like are not the same. They don't appreciate and understand. I love what Hank Shock Lee told me. He said, anytime I took a record to Russell Simmons, if he liked it, I had to run from it. Anytime he said he liked it, he said, man, I get this ain't, I'm messing with my time. And you got LL Cool J, you got Public Enemy, you got Def Jam Records. And I think, you know, there's no room for demos anymore. We're living in an age where you can record your record. There ain't no demos. You either have
it's a record.
It's a record or it's not.
Record. Do you guys notice anything different about the levels that you get, or technically now when you guys as producers get probably people handing you different things? Say, let's check this out, check this out. Do you notice anything different about how they assemble, how they finish?
I do. I do because.
Well, first of all, we say the computer is the most newest instrument. So you get people that can work wonders on the computer. But you know, there's times where we've gotten stuff and it's you know, it's how can I say it? It's like they're not tainted by anything. It's just creativity, and they're just. Whether it sounds different, and we always say there's a difference between sounding different, unique, than sounding yuck.
Yeah. Next question. Is it possible for independent artists to negotiate contracts with big online streaming services such as Spotify, Tidal, and...
Oh, don't give me that question.
No, it's not possible.
Not possible?
Nope. You either want to be on and agree to their terms, or you don't be on.
Okay. Do you see that changing?
No.
Okay. Do you work for them?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Man, can I add something to that? As an artist and a musician, you can't, because that principle is going to be based on the value you bring to the table, and that value is not seen. So you can't expect what's not expected of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's different, for instance, with I guess it was Led Zeppelin a few years ago that took their catalog to Spotify, and obviously they can get a better deal because they're Led Zeppelin and, you know, the legacy. But for just about anybody else, it's not possible.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Next question.
Man, these are good questions, man.
Hey, man, this is everything audio, my brother.
Everything audio. Man, you didn't know. You didn't get the numbers. I didn't either. But
you have Sinbad's hat, so I can't. I don't.
What do you see as the best source of income for future musicians?
Everything. You can't just rely on one thing. It's everything. It's all income sources. It's
all
and not only that, it's also physical product, because physical product, like Barak was saying before, people are still buying it. 177 million CDs were sold in the United States last year that we could count. There's a lot of them being sold.
Real quick, I got an amazing joke for that question, real quick.
Okay.
3 people at the gates of heaven, right? First guy's a doctor. Angel says, hey man, what's your occupation? How much you make? I'm a doctor, 100 grand. Oh, come right in. Second guy, hey man, I'm an athlete, made millions. Come right in. Third guy says, man, I didn't make nothing. Angel said, what instrument did you play?
Hey, we got sent back to go.
Oh man, as always, you guys have sent in some great questions, and it really challenged the panel to think hard, and I have no doubt we're all the better for it. Now let's see JJP's home studio and hear about what he's been up to.
Hi everyone, welcome to Puig Child Studios. Today I want to tell you about my passion for consumer electronics. I have been building products as a signature artist with Waves, and in building those products for professional broadcast, recording, and film, I then took that same brain and started applying it to consumer electronics. I'm noticing that people like myself that come from the pro world have the ear of all the consumer electronic companies. They like to know what we think. We come from the record studio where the song is born, and we know how the artists think. We talk to the artist. We're a facilitator. So that whole entire skill set and everything that is can easily be applied to consumer electronics to bring the shine and the beauty, the inspiration and the aspiration and everything that we do inside the record studio to the consumer. The turning point for me was one day I was working with 2 platinum artists. We were making those recalls and mixes on a system that was worth $150,000. And as I came home, I witnessed a bunch of people sitting around a computer. And what I heard was the sound of them trying to get more volume out of that computer. And that was the moment that I went, wait a second. I just came from a $150,000 speaker system. In fact, even if I did that mix on the NS10s, which I partly did, the tweeter is bigger than the actual phone. The tweeter itself. Forget the woofer, forget the cabinet, just the tweeter. At that moment, I thought about the geometry. I thought about the whole perspective. I thought about the bandwidth. I thought about everything I was doing and realized, how can I be making decisions on $150,000 speakers when I know the delivery system is this little laptop computer that doesn't have any of the extensions, any of the bandwidth, any of the power, any of the volume, anything close to what we were listening to that night in the studio. And in fact, what was the real clincher was earlier that evening, one of the 2 artists had come to me and said, have you heard what this sounds like on a smartphone? Because I just did. I said, no, actually, why would we? Don't have it really in here. We don't listen. Well, I just listened to it that way. And we need to change a couple things in the mix. If this is how people are going to listen to this record, we need to rethink this a little bit. That was the aha moment of like, oh my gosh, you're 100% right. Waves approached me and asked me if I would join the consumer division of the company as the director of creative innovation in the interest of taking the experience and time, not only developing products as a Wave signature artist, but also taking the experience inside the recording studio and moving it to consumer electronics. The way I view it is simply this. Sound only matters for one reason and only one reason, because it is the conduit to the artist's heart. That's what stands between me and the artist. And whether it be a microphone, a recording console, a smartphone, a tablet, it's all the same. It distributes the sound and the emotion and the feel of the artist. That is why I've decided to take some time working inside consumer electronics, in addition to what I'm doing as a record maker, because I really am concerned that the primary experience that we're all listening to music on is really actually, believe it or not, a substandard experience that we've all accepted. That's insane. Why have we accepted a substandard experience? We don't do it inside a recording studio, so why should it be at the actual end of the chain, at the very last minute, 10-yard line, we fumble the ball? I have to fix that. I got to at least attempt to fix it. That is what I really want to do.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. It's been a fascinating discussion and one that I'm sure everyone will benefit from who's watching around the world. Thanks so much to our crew, our guests, Waves, and of course to you guys watching today. Until next time, I'm Dave Hampton, and thanks for tuning in.
Everything that he touched turned to gold. Cut it off. Cut it off.